The film Being There is a quaint, slow-paced comedy tinged with an edge of sadness. It is probably Peter Sellers' most critically acclaimed film, yet is often forgotten, being overshadowed by his more prominent works. It was released in late 1979 and represented a final peak in Sellers' career, as he died of a heart attack roughly 7 months later. Being There is set in Washington, D.C. Sellers plays the role of a simple-minded living gardener called Chance, a character who has never really experienced the outside world. His only real connection to it is through watching television. However, upon the death of his employer, he finds himself thrust into the big bad world. Luckily for him, his newfound set of unfortunate circumstances does not last longer than nightfall that day. Chance is the victim of a car accident involving Eve Rand, a billionaire's wife. After this occurs, he is essentially taken in by herself and Ben Rand, her terminally ill husband. While being driven to the Rands' home, Eve rather amusingly mishears Chance's name as Chauncey Gardner. This now becomes his name for the rest of the film. From here, the real comedy begins. His wealthy hosts, and virtually all those he seems to meet, erroneously perceive Chance to be some sort of eccentric sage-like individual. People misinterpret Chance's quite literal and basic responses, ascribing them a significance that simply is not there. On a number of occasions, his utterances are assigned a metaphorical profoundness, even though, in reality, he is simply sharing basic gardening tips. This is essentially how the vast bulk of the film proceeds, until the very end scenes, which take on a more serious and somewhat sad tone. This film is not what you would term a laugh-out-loud comedy. Rather, it has a more subtle, amusing tone. However, there are some scenes that do create a bit more of a chuckle. One such scene would be where Chance meets the president, who is visiting with Ben Rand. The president is played by the great character actor, Jack Warden. Warden's president character seems bemused by Chance's informal conduct that is lacking in deference, probably a rare occurrence considering his position in elected office. After Ben Rand offers a reinterpreting of Chance's seemingly metaphorical responses, the president is impressed by what he is hearing, so much so that he both mentions his meeting with Chance and quotes him in a televised speech. Another comedic scene that stands out is his appearance on a television talk show, where once again his benign gardening statements are perceived as deep wisdom by all those watching, except the old housekeeper who helped raise and look after Chance. Now residing in an old people's home, she exclaims to the other residents, also watching the TV, that Chance has rice pudding for brains. Ultimately, the film would appear to demonstrate that perception of meaning is potentially far more dependent on presentation than the words that are actually being spoken. The film's comedic premise only works because of Peter Sellers' magnificent performance. After the Being There book title was published in 1970, Sellers is said to have lobbied hard to play Chance in the film role. There is only one aspect of this film that I found to be unconvincing, and that is the romantic interest shown in Chance by Shirley Maclaine's Eve Rand. Additionally, I simply don't believe that Eve could possibly misconstrue Chance's responses as genuine romantic reciprocation. This idea should have been shelved. While working on this film, Sellers apparently mentioned to actress Shirley Maclaine that he had once had what is termed a near-death experience, or NDE for short. The experience was associated with a series of 8 heart attacks that he suffered over a matter of hours in the year 1964. He described leaving his body in what's termed an out-of-body experience. He detailed wanting to travel towards a light that was filled with real love on the other side, which he thought was God. This experience also gave him confirmation that he had lived many lives previously. This whole episode seemed to profoundly impact his view of life and death. The final scenes of the film present some interesting cinematography. They are set at the funeral of Ben Rand. Some interesting symbolism, as you can see. Much can be made of this, I'm sure. There is a provocative statement on the pyramid-shaped mausoleum. Life is a state of mind. In many respects, a self-evident statement, however, one with no doubt many layers of meaning. Though to my mind, the statement is surely lacking a spiritual dimension. The very last film scene is particularly iconic. its meaning is most likely the topic of much debate. Chance is seen to step out onto the lake and walk on the water's surface, seemingly confirmed by his submerging of the umbrella into the water. Perhaps this is a representation of your reality being defined by what you choose to make of it. Simplistic Mr. Chance is immune from life's normal programming, thus not subject to the usual reality constraints, hence he can do the impossible. Well, that's it from me. Don't forget to like and subscribe.